Hey everybody, so we are back with another demo tutorial. I want to talk to you guys about just different surfaces for oil painting. For my painting one oil painting class, we're going to be working on a lot of acrylic and oil paper, which is by Canson, and it's their extra large pad. So what I love about this paper is just lately I've been using it a lot when it comes to my demos. But what I like about it is that if you're in class and you're doing some kind of exercise painting, this is fairly cheap. It's easy to store. It is easy to put down on the board. I just love the surface a bit because I do like to draw before I paint. But it's just a really good surface. I am going to talk just a little bit about other surfaces and how to prep them, but there's a few types of preps that I'm going to go over just basically on our oil and acrylic paper. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the other canvases as well. So the first one that I definitely want to do is really quick, I want to use our gesso. So this is gray gesso, and it's a lot of things you can do. I like to buy gray gesso. That's just me. I know some people they'll mix their acrylic, or you could say acrylic black. This is acrylic gray. You can mix your acrylic black with white gesso, and that kind of gives you a gray. Or you can buy black gesso and white gesso, mix them together. There's a lot of things that you can definitely do. But I totally love gray gesso, but I love it because I can just put it down, and I can, as soon as it dry, I can just go ahead and paint over it. And because it's acrylic base, I can blow dry it, and it'll dry pretty quick even with that, and then I can start painting. So what you want to do, and sometimes what I do, since it's gesso, you want to make sure that you have a house brush, a gesso brush. I think this is just a house brush. I actually got this from Home Depot, and I think it's Performance Select. I know you can barely read that. I can barely read it. But I think I'm going to try and go back to Home Depot and get some more of these, because I had this for a very long time, and it still held its shape. It is synthetic, but it's probably one of the best gesso brushes I've ever had. You can see I've used it a lot. So, one of the things you want to do is, and I know I haven't do it, a good thing to do is just at least have a cup of water near you, or know that you have a sink that's near you. So when you're done gessoing, you could clean your brush. That's very important to do that. So you don't want your brush to get damaged, so just make sure every time after use you clean it. So what I'm going to do is, I actually need to open up my gesso because it's not open. I'm going to shake it up just a bit. It's quite... I haven't used it in a while. Yeah. Got it open. Woo. Alright. So I'm going to pour a little bit of gesso on this joint. Just want to cover it. I have this paper taped down for a 1-inch border. So once, and I probably got too much gesso, but once this is dry, you guys, I can take the tape off and I'll have a clean 1-inch border. So that's one of those important things. So you guys, I've done this video before, but I did it for my acrylic class, and I'm redoing it again because I just want some of the terms to not get confusing from acrylic to oils, and I just want this video to be geared towards my oil painting class. So this is my gray gesso that is on my canvas paper. So what you do once you have it, you want it to dry, completely dry. Once it's dry, you take the tape off, and then you can start painting on it, or you can keep the tape on, paint on it, and then take the tape off once you're done painting. So the good thing about gesso that I love, especially on this kind of paper canvas, although the paper, it is designed where you can just start painting on it right away, I still like to put down some type of ground, because that's what gesso is. It's a ground between the paper, also between the actual oil paint. So having some type of surface that is the protective surface, and it's prepared for you to paint on, that's why I love to have some type of gesso that's already there. So there's a lot of different terminology that you will definitely hear from me, you guys, in class. Is one, if you ever hear me say do an imprimatur gray, that means that I want you to come to class with your canvas or your paper already have a gray tone on it. So you'll hear me say have a imprimatur gray, or have a tone gray, or you say have a primed gray, and that's just coming in with a gray surface before you start to paint. All three is just different terminologies, but it all means the same thing. You just want to come to class and have your tone paper down. Same thing, I might say, come in with an imprimatur brown, or I don't know, an imprimatur, I don't know, I could say an orange or a blue, whatever. That's just me. You want to come in with that tone. And if it's a value 5, this is already a value 5 gray. So those are kind of some of the terminologies with it. So I am going to move on to the next one. So I'll see you guys in the next clip for that. Alright guys, so in the next one we are going to use our acrylic gray. So if you don't have acrylic gray, you can always buy acrylic white and acrylic black, and you can mix them together, and that would definitely give you a gray. So what you can do with this, see how old mine is, I got a little dry paint there. You could just squirt just a little bit onto your paper. I have a regular paintbrush that's here. I'm just going to dab it in just a little bit of water, not a lot of water, because I don't want it to be like a huge a wash. But you just paint it on. I'm try and move fairly quickly if I can. And you guys, what this actually does, it just primes your paper, or give your paper a tone. Because it's acrylic, you can definitely paint over with oils in acrylic. So what I mean by that is you can have an acrylic surface and then paint oil on top of it. So I'm just trying to get this paint down as fast as I can. And acrylic paint dries fairly quick. I can feel it getting tacky already. I'm just going to pour just a little bit more on. Just want to make sure it's fully covered as much as possible. Alright, so once again, you'll just go ahead and let it dry. And if you want to speed up the drying time, you can get a blow dryer, and it'll dry completely dry, and it'll dry fairly quickly. You want to make sure you clean out your brush and just water, because it's acrylic paint, that's all you need. And then once you get as much as the water off, you want to clean your brush and get the rest of the paint off. And then do not pour your water down the sink. You don't want to damage your pipes. It's a lot of different ways you can dispose of it. You can use, I've heard you can use cat litter. I've heard you can allow, put a little stocking cap on top of your cup and allow the water to evaporate, and then the paint will actually dry at the bottom of your cup. Some people, which is I wouldn't prefer to do it, but for some people would just kind of like pour it out outside, but you would damage you would damage your grass, and like it's not good for the environment. So another thing that I have done in the past, because I use a lot of paper towels, sometimes if I have enough paper towels in my basket, my waste basket, I would just pour, it's not a lot of water, I would just pour the water over it. And so those are kind of different ways. Once you pour the water over the paper towels, it soak up the water and the paint, and then you just, put it in the trash can after that. So just really, whatever you do, don't pour it down the sink. Think of inventive ways to dispose of the water. That way you're not damaging anything or damaging the environment. So this is using just acrylic paint. So acrylic paint basically just gives you a tone. Gesso, the difference is it actually gives you somewhat of a ground before you paint. Acrylic paint, it protects the paper a little bit, but not a whole lot, because it's not gesso, it's just paint. But you could definitely do this and then paint over it with oil paint. So this is another way to kind of prime or have an imprimatura or a toned surface. So I am going to see you guys in the next clip, and we're going to talk about some more ways to prepare your paper or your canvas. So next, you guys, on the agenda is white gesso. So like I said, this paper already comes where you can just start painting on it. I, once again, like to have some type of barrier, some type of ground that's there before I start to paint on this paper. So some of you may opt to buy white gesso versus the gray, or mixing, or whatever the case may be. But I wanted to at least give you an idea of showing you how to use it, what to do. So just like our gray gesso, my container is just a little bit different. You can get the squeeze out container if you want to as well. But I'm just going to dip my brush into it, and I'm going to apply it the same way I would apply my gray gesso. So I'm going to make sure I'm covering it up. Just going to smooth out my paintbrush strokes just a bit. And if you don't want your paper to have too much of a paintbrush stroke or texture, you can use add water to your gesso, and it'll thin it out just a bit. Don't want it to be too thin though. And you can play and leave some type of texture, like canvas texture. You see I'm moving my brush trying to get a little bit of a texture, so when it dries it still has like a canvas texture look to it, because that's how the paper is already kind of made. And once you're done with that, once again, you let it dry. And because it's acrylic gesso, if you wanted to speed up the pace, I would suggest getting a blow dryer. Blow dry it to speed up the pace for you, or you could just sit it down somewhere, let it dry on its own. But you can definitely, let's say when we prepare these papers, if you're like, okay, I do want some type of barrier between the paper and the paint, I do want to gesso the paper, but I also want to have like a gray surface. So once this dry, you can take your acrylic paint, you can put a gray surface over it, and that's a way to kind of get that gray prime that's there. And you can definitely do that once this dries. So that's just a little bit on that. So this is white gesso, and I'll see you guys in the next clip. Alright guys, so in this next clip, I'm going to talk about doing a wash. So because we are dealing with oil paint, when we do a wash, you guys, there's a lot of different ways you can do it. You could do a wash with acrylic paint and water. Basically, you water down the acrylic paint and then you paint it onto your surface and then let it dry. What we're going to use is I'm using Gamsol. This is my container for Gamsol. If you have the money, you can purchase a container like this. Do it. If you don't, there's other ways that you could work it out. But this basically has my Gamsol in it. So I'm gonna use Gamsol, and I'm also going to use gray oil paint. So that means I have to mix them together. So you guys, bear with me. I'm going to come back and mix everything up so it's prepared. It's going to be seamless in the video. Okay guys, I am back and a lot more prepared than when I was. So I have my ivory black. Also I have my titanium white. You guys, I'm sorry, they're two different brands, but it'll work. So what you want to do is, as you can see, I have my little glass palette. So in class, I talked about having a glass palette. I love a glass palette. It's just something about it. Ever since I switched over to it, I never went back to anything else. They're easy to make. I made this out of I popped the glass out of a frame, and then I put gray paper under the glass, and then this is actually the backing of the frame, and as you can see, I taped them together. And I taped it. Normally I tape it with duct tape because it's more secure, but I ended up taping this one with masking tape. So bam, I have me a nice little palette, fairly cheap. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ivory black oil paint that's here, squeeze out some, and I'm also going to take my titanium white, squeeze that on out, and I'm going to mix them together because I want to get a value 5. So this is my palette knife. Pay attention to how I'm holding my palette knife. And pay attention to how I mix, because this is how we're going to be mixing in class. So I'm mixing them together. As you can see, I'm using the back of the palette knife to mix the paint in. So it's giving me about a value 5, but I kind of feel like I could get it just a tad bit lighter. So I'm using a little bit more white. Squeeze that in. Mix in some more. Probably mixing way more than what I need. I know I am. But it's okay. I can always store it for class. Alright, so now that I have a value 5 mix, a way to get this to get into one big clump, I'm going to use my palette knife. I'm going to scrape with the tip, and you get like a little ball. I don't know if you guys can see this ball starting to build up. Scrape, 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 scrape. When it's big enough, you can put it, I just put it in a corner. Scrape again. Scrape, scrape. See that ball? Just add that to that. Scrape, scrape, ball. Add that to that. Scrape again. See this little ball? Scrape, scrape, scrape. Add that there. Wipe off my palette knife with my towel or napkin, whatever I'm using, and then I can just wipe this off. And let me get another one. Alright guys, so now that we have that, So I'm going to take my Gesso. So I'm going to take my top off of my container. I'm just going to take, this is just a random synthetic brush that I used earlier. And what I want to do is I want to take my Gesso and I just dip my brush in my Gesso. My Gesso is quite not the cleanest, but I'm going to dip my brush in this. And then I want to add it, thin out that paint. So I'm thinning out my oil paint with the Gesso. Because you want to get a wash. You want to get a thin wash down so we can apply that to our paper. So this will allow the oil paint to dry faster because you're using more solvent than paint. So as soon as that solvent dry, it'll be dry and ready to paint on. So my paper, I didn't do a gesso. I don't have a gesso barrier on it. It's just the paper. So I'm gonna go in with that thinned out paint. I'm gonna do a wash. So I'm adding just a little bit more of this thin paint to it, and it's washed down. So remember, if you're doing like a wash, the cool thing about this is it is oil, it's not acrylic. And you're just using you're thinning out the paint with your Gesso or your mineral spirits. And you're just getting a tone down with the wash. I need more paint. And you can thin it out to however thin you want it to be. Just don't want it too watery. I think this is about a good layer of it for me. So this is just priming or toning the canvas, and once again, this paper canvas does not have a gesso ground. Let's say you want to put gesso down, white gesso, and you're like, okay, now I want to come in with a quick, once that gesso is dry, you want to come in with a quick wash of oil paint. You could definitely do that. Allow it to dry as well. Also, you want to make sure you clean your brush. You want to clean it in your paint thinner or your Gesso or your mineral spirits, whatever you're using. You also want to clean off your palette. I do want to save this paint, and I'll talk to you guys about saving your paint. But what I'm probably going to do is just put it in a little container, and I'm probably going to put it in my freezer. I'm not sure. I'm trying to debate on what I'm going to do with it. But make sure you clean up as you go. That way you don't have a lot that you got to do. So we have one last one, and I'll see you guys in the next clip. Alright guys, so I am back with one of the last way of preparing the surface of your canvas paper or your canvas panel. Wood, it's a lot of ways you can go about doing it. So the next one that we're going to do is oiling in. So we're going to oil in, and we're going to wipe our oil paint, and also we're going to take oil, which is here, and we're going to wipe the paint over our surface. So once again, this surface, I have it doesn't have gesso on it. I don't have a barrier of gesso that's on the paper. It's just the actual paper. But you could definitely put your white gesso down, and then you can oil in if you want to have that barrier. So what we're going to do, as you can see, I have gloves. They're not the right gloves, but it's just the only protection I had in my studio right now. But I'm using poppy seed oil. Poppy seed oil, most artists don't use it. Most artists stay very true to the properties of oil paint, because oil paint is mixed with pigment and linseed oil. So most artists use linseed oil. I like using poppy poppy seed or poppy oil paint or oil or I like using walnut oil because I don't know, just something about it. Walnut oil and also poppy oil, it actually slows down even more the drying process. So if you're doing like let's say you're doing a wipeout, and you just don't want your surface to dry, and the wipeout is doing like a wipeout underpainting. You don't want your surface to dry, and you just want it to kind of have that oily feel for a while. This is probably good for that because it'll allow you to really work out your wipeout. So, really quick, I'm going to pour just a little bit of this oil onto my palette. I sacrificed a t-shirt. I don't have my Viva paper towels. I need to go shopping, so I decided to use a t-shirt. The good thing about using a t-shirt, it's actually good for the environment. On top of, you can reuse these because you can wash them or whatever. I technically don't reuse them if I do. But I use them up as long as I can. So, really quick, the reason why I have on gloves because what I tend to do is I wrap the t-shirt or the rag around my two fingers, my middle and my index. I rub oil onto the towel, and then I'll rub the oil with the oil paint. Which this does is just thins out the paint, basically. Then I take it and then I rub it onto my paper canvas. So I'm just priming the canvas gray. And I actually need more oil. Kind of want to put just a little bit, not a whole lot, a little bit more oil to darken it. So, this is another way to tone your canvas. This technique is a little bit better if, let's say, you want to do a wipeout under painting. Then this is one of the techniques that you definitely can use to do that. Because it allows you to tone your canvas, and normally you'll have a transfer or a cartoon or a drawing under here before you put the oil paint over it, and then you'll come in with possibly a clean rag, let's see, like this, and then you could just wipe out to the surface that you may need. And you can kind of wipe all the way out to the white if you need to. So that's a technique that we will work on this week. But I just wanted to kind of go over some techniques on just priming your canvas, just preparing your canvas in different types of ways. So I do want to talk really quick. I have everything in my hand right now. I do want to talk really fast about just different types of surfaces that you can use. So this is a small canvas panel. So it has canvas, and then it has possibly cardboard. The canvas is wrapped around the cardboard, possibly glued, and then they put like a little paper layer just to smooth it out. So canvas panels are just kind of like using canvas paper. It's just quick to use. Some people do finished products with canvas panels, but I mainly use it sometimes for demos or for a study. I normally don't use it for anything that I want to have in a gallery or a museum. Then you have a panel. So you could buy wood. I say about a half an inch or a fourth thick. You want to make sure it's smooth wood. You can gesso this. Sometimes you can buy these already gessoed and ready to go, but this one is, as you can see, it is gessoed. So I gessoed it myself. And then another thing really fast is this panel is already gessoed as well. So if you pre-purchase your panels or your canvases, they already come primed, or they already come with like a gesso prime or gessoed. I sometimes, especially cheap ones, this one's really cheap, I think I got it from Walmart, I sometimes will re-gesso it just to kind of get a better surface because it's pretty rough, but that's just me. A lot of people, they'll just take it out of the container or take it out of the plastic and start painting. This is a canvas, but it's a small canvas. And it is a stretch canvas. Because this one is so small, this is the stretcher bars that's here. And I think it's just glued together. And then because it's so small, they just glued the canvas over it. So these are kind of different ways of preparing. You could definitely do. This is another stretch canvas. So this is the stretcher bars that's here. This is a deep one. Normally with stretcher bars, you can make stretcher bars. You could buy them and put them together. But the canvas is stretched over the stretcher bars and then stapled together. And then you're here to paint. Once again, this is already primed with gesso, gesso white. Because this is a cheap canvas, I personally would re-gesso it. That's just me because I like to have a more smoother surface. Same thing with this one. This one's already primed, pre-gessoed for you. So if you do some store-bought canvases, canvas panels, stretch canvases, or even wood, most wood you would have to gesso it anyway, in order to paint on top of it. But these, in a quick nutshell, it's just some ways of preparing your paper. It's good to kind of know this because very soon we're going to be painting, and I'm going to have you guys at least prepare your surfaces prior to coming to class, or if you get to class early, you could prepare your surfaces, excuse me, however you want to do it. So I hope this helps. I will see you guys in the next demo tutorial. Enjoy the videos. Bye, guys.